Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news. It's Muskogee Vision. I am your host, Jason Salzman, coming to you from the Muskogee Media Studios here in our capital city of Okmulgee, the Muskogee Creek Nation. Lots to get to this week, lots of big news out of the tribe happening. Just back from the Native American Journalists Association conference, and it's interesting. It seems to always happen like this. As soon as we get out of town to go to the conference, some big news happens around the tribe, and it happened again this year. And thankfully, we had some really good people back here at Muskogee Media on the scene and covering everything that's going on. And I want to just start off right off the bat this week with some big news out of the Eufaula Indian community. We have 3 individuals that have been charged with crimes of theft against the nation's funds. And those individuals are the CEO there at Eufaula Indian Community, Mr. Judd Pickering, Lydia Anglin, and Twana Susie Deer. Now, all together, those funds have totaled the amount around 61 and change $1,000. So we're talking some big amounts here. Judd Pickering personally with 42,000. More than 42,000 that has been alleged against him to be thefted from the nation. More than 6,000 for Miss Deer, and more than 13,000 for Miss Anglin. So some serious allegations and charges that have been brought up. Those individuals will have their day in court, but that was a big story that came out of the Eufaula Indian community. Chief Floyd issued an executive order taking over or assuming responsibilities at the Eufaula Indian community. We had an intern here at Muskogee Media that was around and reporting, Jacob Factor. He headed down to Eufaula, got some pictures for us, and he said, he got down to the Eufaula Indian community. There was notes on the door, closed up shop basically, and the Creek Nation taking it over. He talked to a few people down in Eufaula, obviously very disappointed in this news. And we actually had a chance to go down to Muskogee Radio this week, as Gary Fife had the principal chief himself, Principal Chief James Floyd, on. And he talked about not only what's going on or what has gone on in Eufaula, clearing some of that a little bit up, but also himself, Mr. Principal Chief Floyd, being listed in a lawsuit brought against him, the Department of the Interior, and Secretary Zinke of the Department of the Interior by the Muskogee Creek Indian Freedmen Band, bringing a lawsuit there seeking to get citizenship. And we've seen this before. The Freedmen issue has come up not only with our tribe, but the Cherokee Nation has certainly been in the news with their Freedmen issue. And now it seems that there will be has been a lawsuit brought forth. I believe it was filed July 20th. Naming Principal Chief James Floyd. So Gary Fife asked him about that as well. We now want to show you that interview and that appearance on Muskogee Radio in its entirety here from Principal Chief James Floyd.
It's Jay Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados. Welcome to the program. This week, folks, we've got a couple of things to share. We've had a whole lot of things happening on the political scene and issues facing our nation, actually, and our Principal Chief James Floyd is here today to talk about those somewhat and give us kind of an update on what's going on and where we may be headed. I guess to start off our discussion here, do you want to kind of give us a state of the nation, real quick, the status where...
Short state of the nation, mid-year state of the nation, I guess. Well, it's been a very busy and I believe productive year so far. I'll give a quarterly report to the National Council this Saturday, and we've made great progress in healthcare, in education, The permanent fund is doing well. Programs are meeting the objectives they set in the beginning of the year. And so, using those measures and reporting those to all of our citizens, they can quickly see that, it's work, but we're making progress. I believe that we're on a path that we'll continue to do that. Now we've just finished the third quarter, so in October we'll be presenting, the kind of the year-end report. So with our staff, the things that we'll be doing is working on the objectives for 2019. It'll be a little bit different, and I think the difference is it's kind of like you scratch the surface. In the first year, you kind of scratch the surface and you look at all the things that you need to kind of correct and realign. And, in the second year, you begin to put some measures in place. Or in the third year, we've really gotten more detail on the measures, and I think that we'll see that again next year. And so that will be more detail. So we just keep getting digging deeper and deeper into things. And we need to measure them so that we know that we're making progress. And so in terms of the state of the nation, I think we're doing well. And we're poised to even do a lot more things. And that may be some of the things that's occupying so much of my time right now. We got plenty of opportunities, I'll put it that way.
Certainly. I think, personally agree with you. I've heard nothing but progress for the most part. One little fly in the ointment that we picked up on the end of last week was a situation in Eufaula where 3 top officials were arrested and charged with taking tribal funds without, proper authority. In other words, the word embezzlement comes to mind, but I've not seen it in any of the court documents or any discussions in your press releases or anything else. So maybe we can take a second and kind of fill us in. Our Facebook notice on that particular story has over 20,000 hits on it. So people were love controversy, I guess. But
well, I appreciate them having the interest in the business of the communities. And I guess my appreciation is that we're not going to tolerate things where people go out of bounds and they break the law. There's consequences for that, and it's the tribe's money, and there could be federal money involved, and and that personally, hurts me because, having been a former federal employee, you don't do that. There's consequences there as well, and so I think that we've had this occur a couple places now, and we're acting on it. I think for those people that are affected, they may not like that, but they chose the behavior that they followed, and this is the consequence. Now, let me distinguish between my role and the role of others in this issue. My role is to address the problem that lies within the executive branch. We have oversight over the communities, community research and development does, and so, I signed the order to place the Eufaula Indian community under proclamation. So, now we basically manage the Eufaula Indian community. That's something that we don't take lightly. We don't really want to do that.
you took the step of revoking their charter.
We hold their charter kind of in abeyance, in a sense. They will still follow those things. It's just that our staff will be presiding over the meetings, and I think there's a meeting tomorrow night, I believe, the regular meeting. And we control basically everything that was controlled by these individuals, of the officers of the community before. And in this case, so that was my role. In this case, it was also investigated through the Attorney General's office and their investigation team, and resulted in charges and arrests, and that's serious. And I hate to see that with our own citizens, but at the same time, we have to be very good stewards of the resources that we have. The National Council invests money into these communities, and so they have to comply. And I think the path forward there, Eufaula, is continue to monitor that. The court system will work. This case will work its way through the court system. I'll put it that way.
And that will be the Muskogee District Court.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Tribal District Court. And, I don't control the court. I don't control the Attorney General's office. So, those work independently of the executive branch. So at this point, as I said, my role is basically to put them under proclamation and to manage the community till such time as, things can be repaired, systems put back into place where there's accountability, new officers who will be accountable. And then we'll monitor that, and then then release that. The length of time, I don't know. So that's the extent that I'm involved in that.
Okay, well, it is a sorry kind of story we have to tell, but that's something we have to deal with. A couple of other things. Maybe I know these aren't exactly where your responsibilities might lie. Quick update, Royal v. Murphy. Now, I understand, of course, the Attorney General's office is pretty much running that show. Anything you can share with us on that?
Well, the Royal versus Murphy case, excuse me, as it presently stands, that's a capital murder case of appeal of a death sentence. And so, the tribe is a party to that in that, we're supporting the appeal because it deals with the sovereignty of the nation. And so I think a lot of people think, well, it's a Creek Nation case. It's really not a Creek Nation case. It's an individual who's a defendant and who's been convicted and who's in prison and facing a death sentence. And so it's that appeal of the Murphy case that's going before the Supreme Court. And so that's will take its own course. And so I know it's garnered a lot of attention and will continue to do that. Anytime you're before the Supreme Court, you're going to be a high-profile case.
Right. Now, it hasn't gone anywhere, essentially, but is the tribe kind of looking at preparations in case it does go through and it goes in favor of the nation, looking at possible recruiting more police, things like that?
No, I guess I'll put it that way, because I think that's where the speculation exceeds the case. And that's where the talk, kind of has no boundaries, so to speak. So you hear everything from, civil cases to, law enforcement. But when you distill this case down, it's basically an appeal of a death sentence, and that's a capital crime. And so that's really what the case is about. And so in that regard, we don't see anything changing in regard to the nation, especially anything overnight. And I think that's been the misnomer of the case, is that, hey, everything's going to change. But we'll let that go before the Supreme Court, make the arguments that the defender will make. And we'll see where that goes. Well,
let's shift to, in the recent days, we've heard a suit by the freedmen has been filed. They're saying that the treaty has pretty much guaranteed them the rights as citizens and that the nation has been denying them that. So what happens now? Does your administration assemble your AG and other people to go to court for that one? What's the discussion there?
I've not. You probably know more about that than I do. We've not. I've not read it. I don't think the tribe's even seen that yet. So I don't even know what's in it. I know that I've had conversations with different groups over since I've been in office, and my role as principal chief is to uphold the Constitution of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and so any individual who can tie their lineage back to the final roles of the Dawes Commission and be Creek by blood, they're welcome to be citizens. It's been that way, and it remains that way today. So I'm not sure where they're coming from. At this time, it's just so premature. Like I said, I've not even seen it, read it, and so if it's true and it does come to pass, then we will get attorneys on that, and then we'll see how that proceeds as well.
It might be worth a little chat with the Cherokees on that one.
Well, maybe not. And, I think what some people get confused about in the Treaty of 1866 following the Civil War is that there was one treaty and applied to the 5 civilized tribes. There were 5 individual treaties. Each one was worded a little differently. So we can't say that the Treaty of 1866 was one document, the 5 chiefs, 4 chiefs and the governor signed that. They were all individually negotiated, and it took a number of months before all 5 tribes signed. And I think in the order, Muskogee Creek was 4th of the 5 tribes. So, again, it gets to where the speculation kind of exceeds the issue, and then I think people need to come back, and if they want more education about that, read about the treaties of 1866 as opposed to the Treaty of 1866.
Let's do one more legal question here, and we'll try and move on to something a little more enlightening. The Indian Health Service suit, you sued to have them pay back some of the shortcomings that they had stuck us with. It failed in full funding. Is that pretty much done? Will the IHS be paying the tribe?
I feel confident that we'll prevail on that case. The statistics and the numbers are in black and white. I think it's a failure by the Indian Health Service to pay what they should have. What in this case has gone on for a number of years. I think back to about 2009. I think in the last couple of years, what we've done is made sure that we corrected everything that needed to be corrected and updated the calculations that we use in negotiations with the Indian Health Service. I believe they recognize that. I think so. In that regard, I feel confident. But I was probably the most reluctant individual to sue the Indian Health Service because that was my former employer for over 10 years. So, I know those people and had talks with them and said, look, how could you avoid this? Because it's right in front of you. But that's their choice. And so, again, in my role as the principal chief, I have to look out for the good of the nation. And so we had to file this because we are owed. And we'll see where this goes. I feel confident we'll get the money that we need, and that will help us. And so
I think a lot of citizens are glad that this is moving along, and it looks good. They're glad to hear that we can get some recompense from the federal government. You mentioned your situation, kind of biting the hand that feeds you. I've been in a similar situation for years and years of journalist in Alaska, and all of a sudden I was working for the utility company as the PIO. Former colleagues now were firing questions at me, and I had to hold them off at arm's length and come up with an answer I thought that they would believe, because since they really knew me. So yeah, all of a sudden sympathetic pangs there kind of popped up. Well, a couple of things here that we were made aware of. One, you had some positive news sometime back on developments for the tribe, one of them being the country club. We have now some direction, some idea of where that's going. Maybe you could bring us up to date.
Sure, be glad to. You know, we have the master plan that's has 4 parts to that here in the Okmulgee area. The tribal complex 40-acre parcel is included in the master plan, the Omniplex, the industrial site north of town, and then the country club. So the National Council is very supportive in giving us the resources to contract with a group that did the design, did the studies, and prepared us so that we could go out and make the decisions on the priority of going forth on the master plan. And I think at this point, you know, we're looking at how we finance it. What is the least costly way to obtain resources to undertake, you know, the plan, and working out the finer details. You know, you mentioned the country club building itself. It's on the state and national register of historic places, and so, you know, our plan there is to restore that to the 1920 style that it was when it was built. It will be a revenue stream for the nation. We will use that to have, you know, showings. It'll be open to the public. They can rent that. It has a number of aspects to that are very favorable to the nation. The cost of renovation is really not that expensive for that. But you know, the master plan goes on to look at and lay out that area becoming the cultural center for the nation, house cultural preservation and office buildings that we would build and things like that, and to bring people to that area so they can see our culture, both living and the things that we have stored. And so we will have other buildings besides that, but the country club building itself will be restored, and we hope will be a very successful venture. We know the demand is there. People want to hold receptions and rent that out. So if we could rent it out every day, I'd be happy. That would be great. We'd get it restored. The other aspect of it, as I mentioned, is just prioritizing things. We know the complex buildings, some of them are at least 40 years old now. They've really come to the end of their useful life. And so the master plan really looks at basically rebuilding the tribal complex, bringing in, having the capacity to bring in programs that are now in rented space throughout Okmulgee and have them in central location, have it built in a way that shows our culture and in a way that provides more efficiency in buildings that are more cost efficient than we have right now. And so it makes a lot of sense. We just need to put, get the financing structure in place and then decide which parts go first.
A lot of information covered by Chief Floyd there, a lot of different things going on at the Creek Nation, and the one place that you want to go to stay informed and get all of the information on those things he was talking about is MuskogeeMedia.com. We've got coverage on the Freedmen issue, we've got coverage on Murphy, and we've certainly got coverage on Eufaula Indian Community and where we go from there. So please stop at MuskogeeMedia.com for all of that information, all of that news, and all of the developing stories that are up on the website right now. One of our great citizens out there is doing great things in the world of tumbling. 13-year-old Memphis Black getting started early. He's just been tumbling for 3 years. He's already a 3-time national champion. And here is his story. Meet Memphis Black, the 13-year-old Muskogee Creek citizen that's taken the tumbling world by storm. In just 3 years, he's won 3 national titles, 49 first-place trophies, and was this year's overall trampoline athlete of the year in Oklahoma. And it all started with simple curiosity.
I thought it was pretty cool. I used to always jump on the trampoline and just like try to do the craziest stuff I could. I was just so amazed at all the stuff everybody could do. I told myself, I'm gonna do that.
Memphis perfects his craft at McIntosh Tumbling in Henrietta, a gym itself started by another Muskogee citizen.
McIntosh Tumbling started in 1990 with Joe McIntosh, Spook. Everybody calls him Spook. He started it for his daughter Sonia McIntosh. She tumbled, won lots of titles, and then they just got into it for the kids. They ran a great program for years. They had tons of national champions, lots of titles. I tumbled for them when I was little, and when my little girl was 5, I brought her to McIntosh, of course, because it was home. Started coaching with them, and then when Spook was ready to retire, I took over the gym, and we moved it from Trujan over here to Main Street.
According to his coach, Memphis is not only an incredible athlete, but also serves in a leadership role for the team.
He's a great kid to coach. He's super coachable, but not only that, he's a good kid. We have younger athletes in the gym that look up to Memphis immensely. He has inspired a lot. We have a 4-year-old who just got national champion in Florida on beginner trampoline, but I don't coach him, Memphis does. So that's Memphis's championship right there. He's great. He's a great all-around kid. He has a great family. They're super supportive of the gym, anything we're doing at any time. Memphis will try anything we ask him to do, and he'll get it. It may take a few tries, but he'll get it. But he has great drive. He's a good kid.
Memphis not only has a great deal of fun tumbling, he also has gotten in competitive cheer and mentions both as a way to further his education and future.
My friend, me and her started cheer together, and I really wanted to do cheer because I wanted to get like a scholarship to go to like colleges and all that kind of stuff. I really want to go to like OU because they have a gymnastics and cheer team, and they're adding like trampoline and rod floor and double mini and all that kind of stuff.
Even though Memphis does admit to nerves creeping in for big competition like this year's Nationals, he never loses sight of why he's there.
I was a little bit nervous and stuff, but I got over that nerve. I said, it doesn't matter what I placed as long as I had fun and I did my best.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for another episode of Muskogee Vision. I want to thank all of you for joining us here on CW 1219. And if you can't join us here, we're always on our YouTube channel. Please go check us out. Subscribe, hit the red button. You'll get all of our videos, all of our content, as well as playlists of all kinds of episodes, even older episodes, back when I had hair. They're on there. Go to our YouTube channel, check it out. Muskogee Vision, Muskogee Media, whatever you want to put in, and you'll be brought up to our channel. Please subscribe. Go to MuskogeeMedia.com. Go to MuskogeeMedia.com/shop. Get some of our great apparel that's out there right now. For Jared Moore, I'm Jason Salzman. All the great people here at Muskogee Vision and Muskogee Media. We'll see you guys next time. Same place.